Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Anne and today I'm giving you my first book haul of 2022. We're sitting in a bit of a different location today. We're sitting in front of my boyfriend's bookshelves, which are closer to the window, and I'm kind of soaking up the last rays of sunshine. Today was the first day of the year that I went outside to read in a park. It's very sunny here. It is about 12 or 13 degrees, so it's not that warm, but when you're sitting in the sunshine and have a coat on, it's really nice. And it was just such a lovely, calm way to spend my afternoon. And I feel a bit rosy already, but I figured why not film this book haul while I'm in the happy, cheerful, bookish mood. I have quite a few books to go through with you today because, as you all probably know by now, I work in a bookstore. I've now been working there since November, I think, and the problem of being around books all day is wanting to buy all of them, and having a staff discount is really nice, but it also means that I'm quickly running out of shelf space. So I think the stacks I've gathered aren't even that extreme. It is definitely more than I bought in 2021, but I think there have been years in which I bought just as many books in the first few months of the year. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's just go through the books, because like I said, we've got quite a few of them. The first book I'm showing you is actually the last book I bought in 2021, because I'd already filmed my final book haul of the year, and then I picked up A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, which I'm also currently reading. I'm about 90 pages away from the end, and I'm really enjoying it. It isn't mind-blowing. I know a lot of people really love this book, and I've seen it hyped up on BookTube and elsewhere a lot, and I am really enjoying it, but this won't come above 4 stars for me, I think. For those of you who don't know, this is a young adult mystery novel about Pippa. Pippa lives in a town where 5 years ago a girl went missing, and her boyfriend was suspected of doing it, but before anything could be proven, he killed himself. The girl's body was never found, so we don't even really truly know that she is dead, but every piece of evidence really does point that way. And Pippa decides 5 years after this has happened that for her final school project she decides to investigate this murder, and it starts off as kind of a case study on how journalism has an impact on police proceedings, I think, but then it quickly becomes her investigating this murder and wanting to find out what really happened, because she doesn't think that the boyfriend actually did it. So, onto the actual books I bought in 2022. At the start of the year I decided that I was going to go on a little bit of a buying spree. I'd started a new series at the end of 2021 that I wanted to complete, and there were some other books I really wanted to buy, so I figured to spoil myself. One of the first things I did in 2022 was order a bunch of books. I think there were about 6 of them. So I'll show those to you first. And I ordered these at the bookstore I work at, so I got the staff discount, which was really nice. The first 2 books I ordered were The Obelisk Gate and The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, and these are books 2 and 3 in the Broken Earth trilogy. The first book is The Fifth Season. I completely forgot the title there for a second. And like I said, I read that one at the end of 2021. And really enjoyed it. It ended up being in my list of 10 favorite books of 2021, and I really wanted to continue the series right away, which obviously hasn't happened. I haven't read these 2 yet, but I do want to read both of these this year, so I picked the 2 sequels up. This is a sci-fi fantasy series about a world in which natural disasters happen a lot, and there are certain people in this world that have special abilities. These people are called origins, and they can influence these disasters. They can feel earthquakes before they happen, so they can prevent these earthquakes from happening, but the flip side of this is that they can also make them happen. They have this connection to the earth. And the origins have a special place in society in that they are basically treated as slaves, but they are also very much feared because of their abilities, which really are quite dangerous and influential. And the first book was really good. Like I said, I really fell in love with the world, with the characters. It was really harsh in some ways, but very interesting, and I really hope to continue on with this series soon. The next 2 books I ordered are the 2 books in a duology by one of my favorite authors, and it's Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I haven't read this duology yet, even though V.E. Schwab is one of my favorite authors, and these are some of her most popular books, I think. I've seen these books around a lot on BookTube, and on Bookstagram there's a lot of fan art for them. I think people really love the characters, but I don't really know that much about it. I think this is called the villains duology, because these books are about anti-heroes or even villains. They are the main characters of this duology. It's about Victor and Eli. They started out as college roommates, brilliant, arrogant, lonely boys who recognize the same ambition in each other. And I think what they do is they want to try to find a way to live forever. I'm not entirely sure, but they want to become immortal, and things don't exactly go entirely according to plan, and within this process they become enemies. I think that's basically it. And I think that's also where the story starts, with them actually being enemies and then looking back. Or maybe there are dual timelines, I don't know. I just know that I really love V.E. Schwab's writing. I haven't disliked any book by her that I've read, and I've read quite a few of them now. So I really thought that I should own these books too and get to reading them this year. The next book I ordered in this batch was The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. And this is a book that I read in 2021, and it ended up being on the number 3 spot, I think, in my top 10 books of 2021. So I really loved this, but I didn't own a copy of it because I read it on my Kindle last year. So I decided that I wanted to own an actual copy of it because I loved it so much. And this is the one that I bought. This is about an isolated college town in which people fall ill with a disease that causes them to fall asleep and not wake up. And during this sleep they exhibit extreme levels of brain activity, so they are dreaming very intensely, hence the title The Dreamers. And this book follows various different perspectives within this town. They are all very different people, but they're all experiencing the same thing, namely their town entirely shutting down because of this disease, which is infectious. So I thought this was a very interesting read, especially at the start of 2021, but it's also written very well, and it's just a great book, and I really want to reread it at some point. And then the last book from this batch is a book that I have been interested in reading for quite some time, but I kind of forgot about it, and I'm still forgetting about it because I haven't picked it up yet. And it's The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. I love John Green's YA novels. I love the way his mind works. I regularly watch his Vlogbrothers videos, and I knew that this book had come out, but I kept forgetting about it because I really haven't seen many people talk about it. This is a collection of essays in which he basically reviews humanity and humankind and the world, and it sounds really interesting. So that was the first batch of books. So now we move on to more single books that I bought. The next one is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, which I bought because I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern in January and absolutely loved it. It was my first 5-star read of the year. If you want to know more of my thoughts, I'll leave my January wrap-up up above and down below. But because I loved that one so much, I immediately picked up The Starless Sea. Because before reading The Night Circus, I was actually more interested in reading The Starless Sea based on the synopsis, but I already owned a copy of The Night Circus, so I was going to read that first. But this one seemed really mysterious and otherworldly and really wonderful. It's about Zachary, who stumbles across a mysterious library book containing details from his own life among its pages. And it leads him on a quest unlike any other. And it's about a labyrinth filled with stories hidden far beneath the surface of the earth. So that sounds really, really good. I really want to read this soon, like all of these books, so that's a problem because I don't read that fast. But a lot of people who loved The Night Circus were a bit disappointed by this book. I'm not going in expecting to love it, I think, even though I love Erin Morgenstern's writing style and I love the synopsis. We'll see. I'm going to be cautious and not get my hopes up too much, but it sounds really, really good. Next up, I picked up Period Power by Macy Hill. This is a book about hormones and about your period and how you can kind of make your period work for you. And this might be too much information for some people, but I don't really care. I stopped taking the pill at the start of the year, so I'm now getting my normal period again on a regular basis, and I really want to know more about it and what it does and how it works and how I can make it work for me, if that makes sense. And then I listened to a podcast in which Macy Hill was a guest, and I really loved the way that she talked about periods and the menstruation cycle and everything she had to say about that. She was also very inclusive in her language, which I really appreciated. So I decided to pick up this book, and then I read the prologue, and I've been currently reading this on Goodreads and StoryGraph since January. For some reason, I haven't picked it back up again. Maybe because it's non-fiction and I'm always a little bit intimidated by non-fiction, but I do want to actually get cracking in this book soon. The next book I bought was technically a gift for my boyfriend, but I kind of bought it for me too, and that is The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. I bought this because the cat on the cover looks exactly like our cat Tommy's, so this seemed like the perfect gift, and I'd been eyeing it at the bookstore for quite some time now because it looks so cute. I haven't read this yet, but it's on my TBR for March, and this is about a tiny secondhand bookshop, and it's struggling to survive, and it's probably going to have to shut down. And then a talking cat comes in one day and he takes the owner of the bookshop on a adventure because they need to save books. I think that's basically what happens. It's a heartwarming story about finding courage, caring for others, and the tremendous power of books. So that sounds really wonderful, and since I'm almost finished with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I think I'll pick this up probably tomorrow. The next book I picked up was another cat book, and it is Wat je kat echt denkt, which translates to What Your Cat's Really Thinking. And it's basically a book about your cat's body language, and it's already scratched. Doesn't matter. It's a book about your cat's body language and just learning more about cat behavior, and because Tommy is our first cat, I really want to know a bit more about cats. I haven't had cats ever before in my life, so I'm a bit of a newbie to all this. This seemed like a good book to get to know more about this. The author of this is Lisbeth Putz, and she is a behavioral therapist for cats, so she'll probably know what she's talking about. Then we move on to a big stack of books that I bought recently on a trip to the bookstore with my best friend. One of my local bookstores recently opened up a secondhand section in their store, and we decided to check it out because of course we did. And I picked up 4 secondhand books and then also 2 regular books because I couldn't help myself. And let's go through the secondhand books first. The first one I picked up was Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I don't actually know that much about this book, but I've seen a lot of people read it. This was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2020, and it's a darkly comic and bitingly subversive take on life, love, race, and family. And the main character is called Queenie, and she's a journalist. She's a catastrophist. She is expressive, aggressive, loved, and lonely, and then enough. With a question mark. So I think it's a really character-focused book, and it's really about her. And I've seen some good things, so I'm excited to read this. Next I picked up Beloved by Toni Morrison, which has been on my radar for a long time. I've been wanting to read something by Toni Morrison for years now, but it's always been a bit intimidating to me, partly because I've seen some very mixed things on Beloved. This is her most well-known book, I think, and I've seen some people love it, but I've also seen a lot of people not really getting or not really liking this book or finding it a struggle to get through. But then recently, I think it was at the end of last year, Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe read this book and she really loved it, and she recommended it to everyone. So when I came across it in a second-hand section, I decided to pick it up, basically just because she loved it so much. And it takes place in the mid-1800s, and it's about a woman, I think, who used to be a slave, but she is now free. And so she's dealing with all of the trauma that comes from her past and trying to figure out a way to live her life. And it's also about a dead baby that's haunting the house that this woman is living in. And that's basically all I know, and I'm not really sure if that's even correct what I'm telling you, but I think I should just go in and read this and find out for myself. The next secondhand book I picked up was Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I read Rebecca last year and absolutely loved it, and I also read a short story by Daphne du Maurier a year before that, or even earlier, called The Breakthrough, and really loved that too. So I think it's safe to say that I love her writing and her writing style and her eerie vibe, the suspense she puts into her stories. So when I came across this, I decided to pick it up, also because this is a really cool cover. I don't really know much about this story actually. I just know it takes place in Cornwall, I think, in this place called Jamaica Inn. And I don't know more than that, so I'll find out when I read it. And then the last secondhand book I picked up is quite a chonker. It's The Once and Future King by T.H. White. This is a classic in terms of Arthurian legend retellings, and I've been wanting to read something by T.H. White for a long time because I love Arthurian legends. I really loved it when I was studying them in university, and I haven't really read much to do with Arthurian legends since then. But I really want to, so when I came across this, I doubted for a little while because it is big, so when will I ever read this? But then I decided to just go for it, because by putting this on my shelves, I'll actually make sure that I read it at some point. Probably not this year, maybe not even next year, but I will read it at some point. And then there were 2 more books that I picked up on that trip to the bookstore. They were new books because, like I said, I couldn't help myself. And the first one is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. And now you might be thinking, Anne, you already own a copy of that book and it's very beautiful. And I would say, yes, that's true. But I own the rest of the series in these small-ish... Jesus. Siri just talked back at me and that scared the living crap out of me. Anyway, like I was saying, I own the rest of this series. No, now she kept quiet. I own the rest of these books in paperback, and I really want to own this one, the final book in this series, in paperback as well, just so that the series match. And I definitely won't get rid of my limited edition signed copy, but I want my favorite series of all time to match. So this is the 4th book in the Wayfarer series, for those of you who don't know, which is a sci-fi series that's very character focused. It's really soft and warm and hopeful, and it's about humanity, and it's quite philosophical, and I adore it with everything I own. And then the last book I picked up on that trip is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, which is the first book in what will be a 7-book series, I think, so I need a lot of shelf space for this. But I've been interested in this book for quite some time, because last year I read The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which is her big epic fantasy book, which she casually wrote in between the other books in this series. But I really liked The Priory of the Orange Tree. I wasn't blown away by it, but I did find out that I love Samantha Shannon's writing style, and I've heard good things about this series. I think it's a fantasy series. It might be science fiction or even a little bit dystopian, I'm not sure. It's about a dream walker, which always catches my interest when something is about dreams. That's all I know, and also that's all I need to know. And I've been thinking about buying the first book in the series for a long time now. So when I came across it in the bookstore, and I already had 5 books in my hands anyway, I just added this one to the stack and went with it. And then there are 2 more books to talk about in this book haul. The first book is a book by an author that I already mentioned earlier in this video, and it is also probably my most anticipated release of the year, and it is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is her new standalone YA novel about a girl who is orphaned, and she also doesn't talk, and she lives in a orphanage, I think, and her life is basically dedicated to trying to find out more about her family through the diaries of her mother. And her mother left her with one final message before she died, and this message is basically something along the lines of everything will be alright as long as you stay away from Gallant. But then she gets a letter or something from her uncle asking her to come and live with her on his big estate called Gallant. I've heard it's kind of dark, it's kind of horror-like even at some points, which might not be true. I haven't read this yet, so I don't know. But I'm very intrigued. I love V.E. Schwab, like I've said before, and this sounds like such a good story. I really kind of hope that I will read it this month after I finish my TBR. It's not that long, so it might happen, but we'll see. And then the last book was something I wasn't planning on buying, and I technically didn't buy this because I found this book in a little free library, and it's The Complete Stories by Clarice Lispector. There is a little free library at the end of our street, and I look in it quite often, but I rarely find something. The last book in my previous book haul, which I did in December, was also a book I found in that little free library, which was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So it's kind of fitting that I'm now ending this book haul with a book from that place again. And I've never read anything by Clarice Lispector, but I've heard some really good things about her writing. She was one of the most blistering and innovative 20th century writers of the short story, the back says. And I found it's in really good condition, so I decided to pick it up and hopefully read some short stories from her this year. Those were all the books I bought in 2022 so far. Please in a comment down below let me know if you've read any of these books. What's a book that you bought in 2022 that you're really excited about reading? And please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of me in the future. And have a wonderful day. Bye!